Hello and welcome to my 2021 testing review, and also I will be reviewing at the end of this episode my predictions made in December right after the 2020 season and seeing how much testing has actually impacted that and the changes that I have made. But also I just want to say a big thank you to all of the new people that have joined the channel since I did the live stream this morning on the Racing Statistics channel covering the first morning session, or the last morning session of testing. It was absolutely awesome for my first live streaming experience. We peaked at around 4,300 viewers, and that is absolutely awesome, and the experience was amazing. But with that out of the way, we are going to jump on into today's episode, and that is the testing review of 2021, as well as my prediction review as well. So we're just going to jump on into some overarching stats and some figures from the test. We have the total number of laps on the left. We've got Alfa Tauri doing the most in the Honda-powered car, 422 overall, then Alfa Romeo just 2 behind that, and Ferrari the only other team above 400. But interestingly, we have Mercedes, the mighty Mercedes, all the way at the bottom. The least amount of laps that they have ever done, and the first time in the turbo hybrid era that they are actually at the bottom of the lap leaderboard. But then we've also got the test times on the right here, and we have Red Bull setting a 1 minute 28.960 on the C4 compound, and then just half a tenth back from that, or almost a tenth back from that, is Alfa Tauri, a 1 minute 29 flat on the C5. Then we've got Ferrari 6 tenths down on the C4 as well, then Alfa Romeo, Mercedes, Williams, McLaren, Alpine, Aston Martin, and Haas well over a second off of Aston Martin. So it was a very interesting session, sort of pace-wise overall, but again, it's only testing. We really cannot take much of this as gospel, and this isn't going to translate into Q3 come Bahrain. But with that little overview of all of the testing results all done and dusted, we're going to take a look at each individual team and how both of their drivers performed. So we're going to take a start with Mercedes. Now there is only 4 laps difference between Mercedes, but I feel this is going to be a testing session for them to forget. They really struggled. They lost a lot of time on the first day due to their gearbox issues, then they lost some time on the second day with Hamilton spinning, and then they even lost some time on the third day as well, with some unknown issue in the afternoon session on Hamilton's car, but just 4 laps difference between the two Mercedes duo, and also just over 2 tenths as well, both setting their fastest lap time on the C5 compounds. But definitely from Mercedes' standpoint, a testing session to forget. But we equally haven't seen the full force and the full might of a turned up Mercedes engine yet, so we really don't know yet. But with Mercedes out of the way, we will now take a look at Red Bull, and they seemed mighty. Max Verstappen doing 202 laps on his own, Sergio Perez doing 166 as well, settling in very nicely. Both drivers set their fastest lap on the C4 compound, a step harder than the Mercedes boys, and they were quicker as well. Max Verstappen doing the fastest testing time overall, but bearing in mind that is still about 1.7 seconds slower than the pole position time of last year, even with the 10 to 15% downforce reduction that they have had, or the supposed 10 to 15% downforce reduction. They're still quite a long way off the pole position time of last year. But also, Sergio Perez did have that engine cover issue in testing where he came out of the slipstream from, I think it was an Alfa Romeo off the top of my head, and it just disintegrated and blew up. It's very weird, very odd. There's no contact, no nothing, so it just shows how thin and just flexible these cars are, and also how delicate they are as well, and fragile. But I imagine that's something they might just look at and might just put a couple more supports and struts in there or something like that, because you really don't want that happening in the race. Coming out of the slipstream and then boom, engine cover is gone. But then leaving Red Bull and perhaps the team that had the best winter test so far, if you can call it a winter test, and we head on into McLaren. Now they had an exceptional testing session as well. 172 laps for Daniel Ricciardo compared to 173 for Norris, and also the Australian had the faster lap time as well. Both drivers on the C4 when they set their fastest lap time, and there is about a 4.5 tenth gap between the two drivers. Now, I'm very, very impressed so far with what McLaren have done, and especially how quick Ricciardo has settled in and how confident he seems. I'm very interested to see how they're actually going to do, as at the moment I feel they are a P3, a cut above the rest in terms of like Alpine, Aston Martin and Ferrari. I feel they're on a level playing field, and then we've got McLaren that is just above that. But as always, it is only testing. We are going to have to wait and see just in 2 weeks' time to see where they exactly place. And then from McLaren, we head on into Aston Martin. Now, they had a funky testing session. It was a bit of an interesting one. 117 laps for Vettel compared to 196 for Stroll. The biggest disparity in all of the teammates so far. And in terms of lap time, Vettel never really set a competitive one. His fastest lap was a 1 minute 33.7 on the testing prototype tyre, compared to a 1 minute 30.4 on the C4 for Stroll, which is fairly competitive. I'm not going to lie, so the Aston Martin does seem quick. It's just they haven't done a lot of quick times. They've mainly focused on their long runs, which equally seem very, very good. It's just an iffy testing session, just not a very headline-grabbing testing session for them, just a very fly-under-the-radar sort of testing session. And then from Aston Martin, we head on into Alpine, and another team that I was impressed with very, very much. We had 204 laps from Fernando Alonso and 189 from Esteban Ocon, and then both drivers also set their fastest lap time on the C4 compound. A 1 minute 30.3 for Fernando Alonso set today in the afternoon session, and then a 1 minute 31.146 from Esteban Ocon. Now, I was mightily impressed with Fernando Alonso. He managed to just poodle around and set like 1 minute 30.7s or something like that on the C2 compound. That's ridiculous today in the afternoon session. It was so cool to watch him, just his consistency and his tenacity as well. It is amazing to watch. So I do reckon Alpine are going to be one of those teams to watch out for this season with some definite surprise results. And then from Alpine, we head on into Team Scarlet of Ferrari. And again, a bit of an odd testing session, I feel, for Ferrari. They're definitely in the middle ground at the moment still. 212 laps for Leclerc, that's very representative. And then 191 for Sainz himself. And a 1 minute 30.4 on the C3 compound for Leclerc for his fastest lap. That is very promising, as is Carlos Sainz's 1 minute 29.6 on the C4. So they have definitely 100% made some strides forward in terms of last year as well. Whether it's going to be a big step forward and whether they're going to be P3, that is a completely different matter, and I personally can't see them quite yet being P3 and making that leap all the way from P6 to P3. It's definitely going to be cool to watch, as I feel at the moment, like I said in the McLaren piece, they are on a They are on a level playing field with Aston Martin, Alpine and themselves. They are level, and then McLaren, I feel, are just above them at the moment. And then from Ferrari, we head on in to AlphaTauri. Another very impressive showing from AlphaTauri. 237 laps for Pierre Gasly. And then also 185 for the rookie Tsunoda. A very impressive showing. Both drivers setting their fastest lap time on the C5 compound. A 1 minute 30.4 for Pierre Gasly and a 1 minute 29.05 for Tsunoda, the second fastest testing time of the session. And honestly, he was trading times with Max Verstappen. They were going back and forth in the last couple of hours of the last afternoon session, and it was amazing to see. One would set the fastest lap time, then Kimi Räikkönen set the fastest lap time at one point, and then the other would do it, and then just back and forth. Awesome stuff. But whether they can actually bridge the gap to P6 and actually join that midfield fight, that's a tough one. That is a very tough one to actually bridge that gap. That's going to be difficult for them. And then from AlphaTauri, we head to the second Alpha team, and that is Alfa Romeo. Another very impressive showing from them. I feel they've made some good steps forward. 228 laps for Kimi Räikkönen, the second highest total mileage for a driver, and then 192 for Giovinazzi, and a 1 minute 29.7 for Räikkönen on the C5, and then a second back from that also on the C5 is Giovinazzi for his fastest lap. Now, there was speculation and sort of rumours going around that Ferrari had asked Alfa Romeo to pump up the engine a little bit, for Alfa Romeo to test the engine limits more than Ferrari, so Ferrari themselves didn't show their ultimate hand, yet Alfa Romeo sort of have, and now Ferrari can use that data from Alfa Romeo and work out how fast they are going to go themselves. It's a very interesting tactic, but again, only speculation around that, as we saw Kimi Räikkönen starting to put in some very quick laps, and then came the quick laps from Ferrari. But again, whether Alfa Romeo can bridge that gap to Alfa Tauri, that is going to be a very difficult task. I feel they have a mammoth fight on their hands with Williams instead. But then from Alfa Romeo, we head on into probably the biggest disappointment of testing in my eyes, and that is Haas. To have two rookies in the car, Mick Schumacher and Nikita Eggface, and to already admit that you are sacking off this year to focus on 2022. That is not the image you want to be sending to your two rookie drivers. Respectfully, they have done an incredible amount of mileage and their car seems reliable, and they equally haven't done any quick laps, so we don't actually know their full pace. But it just seems really bizarre, in my opinion. It seems so odd for them to immediately, even before testing began, they said they were sacking off this year. It seems like a backward strategy for me. And both drivers, I feel, they're going to sort of feed off each other. I know some people aren't going to like saying that for reasons I'm not delving into today, but both drivers should push themselves and push the team, but the team isn't going to develop itself, which is a big shame, But from Haas, we move on into Williams, and again, one of the teams that impressed me the most. But interestingly, they were the only one to put in a driver that wasn't their race driver in. And they put Nissany in all day, leaving just Russell and Latifi 1 day each. 157 laps for Russell today, and 132 laps for Latifi yesterday. Although they did put in some very respectable lap times. A C5 compound lap of a 1 minute 30.1 for Russell, very respectable, and then just over a second and a half down from that on the C4 compound is Nicholas Latifi. Now, Williams have made some massive steps forward, especially in the aero department. The car looks incredibly different, so they're definitely moving forwards, and I feel they are 100% going to beat Haas for last place, and they are going to have a season-long battle for Alfa Romeo for P8. And there we go, with the testing roundup and all of the key stats and the key figures and stuff looked at. I would have loved to have brought you some more data, but I just simply didn't have access to that, which is a bit of a shame, but not the end of the world. We are now going to take a look at my December predictions. Predictions made at the very end of the 2020 season for 2021, and they are Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Perez, Vettel, Stroll, then Ricciardo, Leclerc, Alonso, Norris, Sainz, Ocon, Gasly, Tsunoda, Raikkonen, Russell, Giovinazzi, Schumacher, Eggface, and Latifi. And I received a lot of stick for putting the Aston Martins that far up, and then especially the McLarens and the Ferraris that far down. Everything else people sort of agreed with, but just the Aston Martins they did not. But after testing, I have decided to review this, and I have changed it to Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Perez, Ricciardo P5, Alonso P6, Vettel P7, then Leclerc, Norris, Sainz, Stroll, Ocon, Gasly, Tsunoda, Russell, now ahead of Raikkonen, Schumacher, Giovinazzi, then Latifi and Eggbrain. Now, I'm still probably going to receive a little bit of stick for those testing predictions, and those are now my final predictions, so please leave your predictions down in the comments below. I'm hoping to come back to this at the end of the season if I'm still making content, which I should be. I should still be making content by the end of the season, and I will sort of review them and see how well everybody did. But there we go, that is the end of my testing preview. If there is anything that you'd like to add, then please let me know in the comments below. I'm more than happy to engage in some conversations with you guys. That is exactly what these types of videos are for. But that is all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.